Right then, hi everyone, welcome to our Bullhorn automation webinar. Today we are fixated on unlocking Bullhorn because for some recruiters it's a vault, maybe akin to Harry Potter, surrounded by goblins, who knows, dragons, but there's gold in there obviously. I'm not going to take the analogy any further. Doesn't feel like the right time of day to do that. So let's start the webinar, shall we? Let's get cracking. So obviously, sourcing is one thing, placing is a whole different kettle of fish, but ironically, sourcing should be the thing that's driving placing. But what we are seeing, and what I've certainly get a bit fed up with, is that no matter how much tech we throw at the industry and at recruitment, sourcing still seems to be a very paralyzing part of the process. And as long as I've been alive within recruitment, sourcing has taken way too long. And in some instances, around a third of a typical recruiter's week. So if you've been to any of our webinars, you know that we are absolutely at the heart of getting automation, getting Bullhorn, getting your data, getting your recruiters, really focusing on their 3 T's, the time, the targets, and the tasks, and making sure that automation really helps drive that. So some of you know who Wayne and I are, and you'll get to know us throughout this webinar. Some of you are old or existing clients, or are about to be a new one. Who knows, you lucky creatures? But as you'll see, the clue of the business is in our names. We imaginatively named it Barclay and Jones, or Barclay Jones. So you get to meet us today. Welcome, everybody. If you don't know who we are, here's a quick 10-second pitch. We do 3 things. We train recruiters on Bullhorn and recruitment and lots of other rec tech. We also diagnose and assess with our vision product, Bullhorn return on investment, and really understand how you're using it and what you want to achieve as a business and glue those 2 things together. And we are known as the best automators out there. I mean, I say we, not me. Wayne and the team do a lot of that. And automation for us is absolutely the missing link, soon to be followed by AI. And a lot of clients are coming to us at the moment saying, can you get us AI ready? And automation is the way, is the pathway to AI. Now, we're always a fan of interaction, and I'm always a fan of understanding how you're thinking and feeling about stuff. And I'm absolutely in the mood to hear one word from you lovely people today. Get your keyboards ready. Give me one word to describe your candidate database. Feel free to have a bit of fun, because life is a bit serious at the moment. We run this poll every now and again, and there's always the odd word that just makes me giggle. So see what we can do here, see what we can achieve. Somebody yesterday on a webinar said oofed. I had to look it up. I'll let you do the same. Muddled, extensive, messy, extensive, muddled, exciting. Ooh, want what you're having, please. Cluttered, free Bullhorn. Unloved. Pop unloved into your chat, into the little poll that's popping up there, so I can grab that later. We've had all sorts of words over the months. Dinosaur, hemorrhoid inducing.
Blimey.
I know. I want to know what that. I'm thinking, how could that possibly work? Let's move on. Thank you for that. I'm collecting that up because I'm actually going to create a bit of content. And for those of you who've worked with me personally in the past, you'll know that every conversation I have with a client and every conversation I think a recruiter has with a client or candidate needs to be content generating. This is one of those moments, isn't it? God forbid I turn that into a blog. Already did that yesterday. Thank you very much. Close the poll down, sir. So what are we talking about today, Wayne?
We were talking about sourcing and what you can be doing in your Bullhorn system, but predominantly how automation can be helping the sourcing process. Going to be looking at 4 specific areas: coding, what automation can do from a coding perspective, making sure you use your candidate engagement strategies and presenting some ideas around that. Clearly, I'm going to be massively talking about advertised jobs, one of my favorite automations and one that adds so much value. I say I don't see enough people using it. And we're going to be talking about Automatch, people that have access to Automatch, what it can do, what it can't do, or some workarounds as to what's just been released to enable it across non-UK English-speaking locations.
Oh, gorgeous!
Exciting.
He got a bit excited then, ladies and gentlemen, about advertised jobs. Do you think he'll be able to control himself? Right. I'm always the warm-up act for each of the bits that he does in life as well, would you believe? Look, data. People talk about data health. I prefer data wealth. Get it? I'm absolutely in the mix and have been for a number of years, even before we started working on Bullhorn, when I was an IT director for a firm of 150 assertive recruiters. CRM first was my mantra, and I wasn't thanked for it initially when I invented that term, and eventually I was, because once they got getting the data sorted, getting the processes nailed down, and making more money, oh, what was in it for them? That whiffum was really, really there. The problem is, over the years, more and more data has been chucked at recruiters, more and more systems as well, and then we wonder why they're not picking up the phone. So I'm a big fan of, actually, let's get some stats into the mix. So we might show you some stuff that you know already today. We might explore some concepts that you've explored before, but I hope in the very least you will leave this webinar with 1 or 2 takeaways, hopefully some fire in your belly, the odd stat card that you can thrust in front of your lovely teams to go, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing for you, not at you and not to you. So we know that dirty data costs businesses money. Yeah, we know this, not just because of the stats, but think about it, peeps. Most of the businesses I've ever worked with, and I've been in recruitment a while, admit to the age-old stat of that candidate was on the system all along, even though I advertised and sourced them from elsewhere, and it took me twice as long to find them. That costs money, doesn't it, that dirty data? And equally, there's a lot of stats out there to prove that the majority of data on our databases, unless Barclay Jones have helped you clean it up, is dirty. And why is that? It's not because a recruiter wakes up in the morning and has a goal of dirt. It's just that they're too busy to think straight. And as directors and leaders of businesses and operational gurus, we're potentially not really leaning into what matters. And absolutely, LinkedIn and job boards have got this nailed, because they make their systems so easy to use and they create such a high level of FOMO. It's so easy for a recruiter to go on and scrape data and grab it and, oh, it looks amazing. But in reality, those 2 data points are probably the dirtiest on the planet. But still, recruiters are paying for the privilege of accessing them, whereas they've got their own database right in front of them every day and they're not doing enough with it. But that's why you're here today. I want you to be thinking, while we're working with Wayne, that if you could spend or get less time spent sourcing, how you would reinvigorate. Now, one of my clients recently said, I have a goal this year of going down to a 4-day week. So everything that you and your team do for me, Lisa, needs to be fixated on that one goal. Love it. That gives us something to work towards. You may just want to stay in your business 5 days a week, but just make loads more money. You may want to offer more holidays. You may want to scale. You may not want to hire any more recruiters, but do more with what you've got and improve the work-life balance of the people that work for you. But that's what we're looking at here. We're not just talking about making sourcing better. We're talking about the sourcing impact on the rest of the life cycle and your business, and potentially your ability to take more holidays and retire early. I mean, that's the ultimate whiffum, isn't it? That's the ultimate whiffum. I want to know as well, please, I'm just going to ask you another question. What's the first place that your team sources from first? Where do they actually go? Where's the first place the majority of your team will go to when they're trying to find candidates? Again, I'm looking for, sorry, go on.
I'm going to say I'm seeing a lot of people using their inboxes still. Lots and lots of CVs in the inbox. It's quick to engage with the candidates in the inbox. It's not great from a business perspective because you can't share that data. Can't track it.
Now, obviously, everyone that clicks on Bullhorn first gets a sticker for obvious reasons, because you've all got a personal wall chart on my wall in my office here. But often we see that there's not enough time being spent on Bullhorn, and actually the stats are speaking for themselves. And I know we've not got 1 million people on this webinar today, but it's interesting where people are likely to go first. And again, LinkedIn have got a run on this. It's a good psychological trick that they're playing with you guys and gals, that their database is gorgeous and cool. No, it's not. It's full of aspirational people who are not necessarily, I'm not saying they're lying, but they're absolutely not telling you how it really, really is. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. So I want you to be thinking about this loading and this coding, because recruiters have got the tools to blast Bullhorn full of data, haven't they, Wayne? They're really good at that. Yeah, it's one of the first questions we get asked when we start working with a client. If we're doing a Bullhorn vision project and we are looking at their workflows and their data and their automations and their analytics and their humans, One of the first questions, how can I work? How can I get even more data onto my database? And by the way, sometimes more is more if you clean it and engage it. And that's the next webinar, by the way. But there's definitely some tricks that Wayne wants to share with you about how you can actually code up your data. Talk us through this slide, Wayne.
So the idea of this slide is if you've already got some information, the loading and the coding process, lots of recruiters upload a CV, upload some data, don't necessarily check the data once it's been loaded. They don't think about the additional fields that will help them with long-term engagement. They upload the CV and just assume that everything's correct. What automation can be doing for you is it could be inferring information. There's a lot of hints and tricks that I'm going to show you in a second. One of them is if we know the nationality, then on theory, then we could assume and infer that the language, if you live in Germany or you're German, therefore you probably speak German. So therefore we can copy that information across into that field. If you're a European recruiter or you use languages a lot, having that level of data is really, really important. How many times do recruiters update the language field? Probably less than 1%. Yeah, I've worked with a European recruiter currently. They're really pulling their hair out. They can't source candidates because they don't know the language. Yeah, so that's one of the issues. So taking information from one data point and then inferring that and using automation to infer that. We did an example recently, website integration. They had 4 key main areas, industries, but the web developer couldn't link through to the relevant field. So therefore they linked through to a different field. And of course, nobody was searching against that field. So what we did was just use automation to say, take that bit of data, push it into that field over there. That meant that the people could search on it. That meant there wasn't a huge amount of additional cost with APIing that data points, etc., etc. So really think about the data sets that you have. What do you already know? What can you infer? The same goes with hot lists. Hot lists are a great way. Recruiters use hot lists a lot. I'm not a big fan of them. I think using saved searches or favorite searches is a much better way of using hot lists. But I did a one for a client a long time ago, data scientists in London. We knew that the job title was data scientist, so we just used that information. We said, if they're in this hot list, they're a data scientist, their category is data science, they live in London. We put a rough postcode in there to give it a rough bit of information. We did all of that so that those 3,500 candidates in that hot list were suddenly coded up. Now, if you work with your individual recruiters and they've all got lots and lots of hot lists, you can work with those recruiters to update that data. There's 2 benefits there. 1, they're updating the data. 2, you're promoting what automation can do for them. And it'll start getting them thinking about, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. I can do these things over here. I can just focus on sales and let automation do those things. And it'll start producing this snowball effect. There's a thing called that tipping point, isn't it? 25% is the magic figure. 25% of the population are doing something. The rest naturally follow very quickly. You need to get that tipping point within your business as well. So that's what this is, loading and coding. Understand exactly what it is you're currently doing, understand what fields are missing, then use automation to identify what data points you have got and that you can infer. It's a really obvious thing to do, I think, with automation.
I think as well, when you look at this slide overall, just to finish off this slide, go back a stage for me quickly, Wayne. There's something to think about is there's effectively 3 parts to this slide. If I was to almost like infographicalize this slide, there's 3 bits. There's what have you already got that you can kind of squeeze more out of? How can you get your candidates engaged in the data loading process?
Yep.
And incredibly importantly, how can you get your recruiters engaged? Now, in old money, for some of my older clients, they'd have pizza and Peroni nights. And ironically, and it still makes me giggle, get the staff really drunk and then get them to clean the database up, which for me sounds a little bit like, well, great fun, but not great value longer term, depending on if they were very good at operating under the influence. So think about those 3 ways that you can attack your data, but make data wealth a really important part of everybody's business within your organization. And also be thinking as well, are we aiming for 100% clean, or are we aiming for 5% more this month, 5% the month after? And then, oh my God, that's a gorgeous tipping point in itself. You may never have a purely sparkling database, but you might put an extra 50 squillion pounds on your database by cleaning up 500 records.
Absolutely.
So it's not about bleeding over your keyboards. And equally, we do speak to people regularly who haven't got automation yet, and they say, oh, I don't want automation yet because my data's not ready. What? Automation will fix your data if you let it. It's a
Absolutely.
journey that you need to take yourselves on, and then you stay on that journey. It's a good journey to be on. Once the data's clean, finding things and placing it quicker. Bullhorn tell us, for example, that if you place a candidate from Bullhorn, as opposed to advertise it and search for it outside, you place them within 40 days instead of 60. I'll take that. I'll take
Absolutely.
that. So make data wealth part of what you're trying to do here, and think about what the system can do for itself, what candidates can do, and what your recruiters can do. And it's amazing if you put all those three things together, you get a bit of joy, I think.
I think the other thing as well, that, the educating the recruiters there, that comes down to a cultural thing within your business. When I was in full-time employment, one of the businesses that I worked at, went out and bought another business, they acquired the business, and it was a beautiful business. They really took data really seriously, to the point whereby the three directors would regularly or every evening check 5 random records that have been created that day for their teams. And if you hadn't filled in the necessary fields, you got absolutely, you didn't get berated, but you'd had a stern word talking to. I think that comes down to the culture of the business and what the leadership and the management are expecting, and also what they're doing on a day-to-day basis to help promote data wealth.
Absolutely.
In considerations for automated coding, I've already mentioned that, what do you trust? What fields do you expect? What are your standards? Yeah. Do you have minimum data standards? Do you expect everything uploaded up front, or do you layer the information as the relationship builds with the candidate or the sales contact, etc., etc.? So there's an awful lot of automation that you can be doing there. Couple of examples here. I'm going to show you the example of the copied perm data to candidate data. It's really obvious. We've already talked about copying or updating fields based around the spreadsheet, the tear sheet or the hot list. Copying web info over to a candidate record, example I gave a second ago. Candidate application. This is where you can add real value when a candidate applies for a job. We update GDPR if you need to update GDPR, but on top of that, you can reach out to them and say, thank you very much. Can you please double check or confirm these details? One of my clients even says, can you finish the application, or can you complete your application? Inferring that potentially if they don't do that, they're not going to get a call. They get a huge response from that. But adding candidates to the database and allowing candidates to self-cleanse their data, to self-service their data. 20 years ago, we wouldn't allow the candidates to do that. We didn't trust it. Candidates do it all the time. They do it on LinkedIn. They do it on job boards all the time. It's precise amount of time. So why do we not allow the candidates to do it themselves now on your own database? Example that I've got here is this is the onboard and engage new hires process. Anybody who uses onboard and engage new hires, if you haven't, get it switched on. It's really good. Think about perm contract temp roles. But one day after they've started, then you can copy the information from the placement or the job into the candidate record. It's really obvious. Recruiters don't do this themselves. So get the automation system to do this. It's a really, really quick way of ensuring that the new information where you've placed them is uploaded in that candidate record. Talked about training and standards, validating the pre-screen process. So if you've got a candidate that's just been uploaded, in this instance it is a candidate, you need to have some standards in place about what you expect your recruiters to be doing. So I would never expect a recruiter to know everything about the candidate record and therefore make every field mandatory. When they've just uploaded the record. I think you personally need to layer the information. But what you can do is you could be saying things like, when a candidate has had a pre-screen or an interview with a recruiter, well, we should know the following fields. And then automation can use this and say, right, are there data in these fields? You can even use things like, does the email address contain an @ symbol and a full stop? If it doesn't, then we can message the recruiter immediately and say, you've not filled all this information. Can you go back and update it, please? That goes back to that company that I talked about a second ago, whereby we went out and bought them. The managers were going out and checking that data. Well, they wouldn't need to do this anymore because automation would do that. It can inform the manager, the directors of the business, that Wayne hasn't done this work. But that's another great tip for validating pre-screen data and layering that information across your database.
Now, remember, this first stage we're talking about is removing the barriers to sourcing from Bullhorn. That's what we're trying to do with this first stage of this particular webinar, is say, right, telling people to source from Bullhorn first. Well, I want what you're having if that works, okay? But actually creating an environment that makes them think it's their idea. or at least showing them the success of what that looks like, giving them the statistics that we often spout in these webinars to really give them some empirical evidence if that's what they need, that actually it's worth putting the trust in. The challenge that you've got maybe is maybe your databases, according to the language that you used at the beginning of this webinar, are not, the perception of it isn't great. I mean, if you're using that language and maybe you're not sourcers, maybe your mortgage is not reliant on finding candidates on the system. If you feel like that, can you imagine how the average recruitment consultant feels? And of course, LinkedIn have got billions of pounds worth of marketing behind them to persuade your recruiters that's the best place for them to be. So you've got a bit of a job to do. But that first bit that Wayne talked to you about is all about removing those barriers. Remember, we're unlocking Bullhorn, not just telling people to use it, because when did that ever work? The thing as well is it's not just about persuading recruiters to go onto the system and removing that crappy data perception, but we've also got to say, right, it's okay getting these candidates onto Bullhorn, but the next challenge that you've got is, well, it's not keeping them there. They're there, aren't they? Unless you press the big fat golden delete button, which some of us really enjoy doing every now and again, admit it. But there is that piece about engagement. And I still remember in my much younger days when I started out as a consultant in my own business, and I was doing lots of marketing work and pre-automation really, but lots of CRM and operational, getting recruiters to really engage with their data. And the leader of this particular business said, we're great at attracting, we're absolutely no good at engaging.
Yeah.
And I think what happens in a lot of recruitment businesses is they either think they don't have the right level of content, whether it be written or verbal or online, apart from all they've got is job adverts. And of course, if I said to you tomorrow, stop writing job adverts, then what would you have left? And there's a different webinar coming of what to say and how to engage, because we've got hundreds of ideas that are very cheap and easy to deliver. But just start with the recruitment life cycle and ask yourself where you are actually actively engaging people throughout that life cycle, or are you simply engaging them when they apply for a job? And are you maybe continuing to engage them whilst they stay in that interview process? Yeah. And again, there's a lot of stats out there, they're coming up, which tell us that candidates think, probably not going to hear back from you. They might not even hear back from you after an interview. They might not hear anything back after they've not succeeded with a client. It's like we are very reactive as an industry, but I must stress the tech is there to remove that excuse now. So think about those stats that you've got in front of you here. If you need a screenshot of this, take it now or ask me for the slide deck afterwards, or type in slide deck now and you can have this for nothing. It's all good. I don't mind a Mars bar every now and again. But have a look at these stats. These are really compelling. If you keep talking to people, they're going to keep talking back, would you believe? Equally, recruiters that keep their candidates engaged have a better quality of hire. Now, I absolutely expect you to be quite excited at that concept, because candidates are less likely to drop out, candidates are less likely to be counter-offered, candidates are more likely to stay in the job, and candidates are more likely to refer you once they're in there. This is gold. Why would you not want to keep them engaged? And equally, even if they weren't successful the first time around, but you've got them because you've won their hearts as well as their minds, they're more likely to stick with you for the duration. So talk to us, Wayne, about how these lovely people are going to use automation from an engagement perspective. Bearing in mind, by the way, and don't give away your gold to data, sir, that we've got a big webinar coming up next month specifically about engagement. Oh, and by the way, here's a blog to really nail down the content that I've just given you there. So grab your camera phones now. Sure, I just sounded like an old woman. Grab your phones now. Grab that QR code, download that blog, give it a read, and get those stats into the minds of your lovely teams, because there's some really good stuff that I popped into there to really help you get the message home about why this is so important. Carry on, Wayne.
So candidate engagement, the Bullhorn used to start in their grid report a couple of years ago. Active candidates expect some form of communication every week, once a week, some form of communication with a recruiter, that they're talking to or dealing with. If you're not fulfilling that expectation from the candidate, then you're losing them. They're going elsewhere. They're looking at other your competitors, maybe applying directly to the jobs themselves. So you need a strategy, and you need to be able to identify your active, your passive, and your inactive candidates. And you need a strategy around each of those. How often should we be engaging with active? How often should we be engaging with passive? And how often should we be engaging with inactive? When we build automations for clients, we generally have a plan for each of those statuses, those options. We even sometimes build automations that will automatically update active, passive, and inactive. And you should also have some way of being able to, the candidate telling you a call to action on the emails. I am no longer looking. I found my own job. Well, let's mark them in inactive, but let's make sure that we continue to reach out to them. There's a wonderful found own job, or traitors, as one of my clients calls them, automation, which means that if they found their own job, well, let's reach out to them 2 or 3 months down the line. Are they enjoying it? Is it what they expected? Again, that level of detail, it's information that you can then use to try and engage the candidate. And who knows, you engage them, they're in a management position, you reach out to them 3 months down the line, the person that placed them isn't engaging with them, you pick up their jobs. It's a great way potentially of business development. So yeah, there we go. This is some candidate management ideas. Considerations around this. If you want your candidates to update their data, absolutely fine. Just make sure that they're only updating the key fields that you're going to use. There's no point asking what favorite color their favorite color is, or inside leg measurement, whatever that's going to be, if you don't use that data. And also, people get lost in surveys. They get bored. After 3, 4, 5 questions, you'll generally see that people drop out. So try and keep the surveys and the engagements short and sweet. And that again goes back to the layering of the information. You may ask them what their favorite football team or sport is, so you can record that at placement stage or at interview stage, so that you've got something else that you can talk to them about, but you wouldn't necessarily want to find that information out through a survey on the first engagement. So think about layering the information. Always have some form of call to action in the communications that are going, saying, I'm looking, I'm active, please call me. Something along those lines that would help. The big one that I always look at is don't spam them. It's always a concern that clients have. We don't want to spam our candidates. Well, you won't spam the candidates or your sales contacts if you're sending them relevant information. If you're sending people information about a completely different industry or something that they don't have an interest in, then you are going to be spamming them. You are going to get large unsubscribe rates. Talked about layering information already. And the other thing as well that I like to see, we don't all have huge amounts of time to sit there and create new content that we can send out. So try thinking about making your content non-time specific. Yeah, I see a lot of people saying this month we've done X, Y, and Z. We want people to drop into an automation at the top of the funnel or the journey, and us be able to reuse that content. So newsletter 1, newsletter 2, newsletter 3, month 1, month 2, month 3, whatever you want to call it. Don't put some time frames on it. Don't say January, February, March, because you can't use that data again, and therefore you have to go in and start creating new information. Automations that you can typically create. Engage active candidates. Weekly communications or notifications to recruiters to ensure that they are engaging them. Passive candidates, I think passive candidates are people that would move, in my world, for a role if the right opportunity came along. They're not actively looking, but it's always something, if they want more money, that's the sort of thing, or they want to use a different skill set. So advertising jobs is the way in which you can engage those candidates. If you're using semantic match, you can reach that by jobs by email, those sorts of things. Inactive candidates, I think, are the passive, the pool of candidates. 80% of your database are probably not actively looking for a job. You not engaging with those candidates means that when they do become available, you are missing out on those. So you want some form of either monthly, quarterly, 6-monthly outreach to ask them, has anything changed? Is it worth us having a conversation? Is there anything I can help you with, etc., etc.? The recruiters will have forgotten about all of those candidates in the database potentially. That's where your marketing engine can really sort of go into overdrive and start reaching out to those people. And then, when they get down the funnel, the sales or the marketing funnel, then when they say they're active or they're interested or they're looking at live jobs on your website, that's the time when you can forward that onto your recruiter to engage them. So those are the sorts of candidate engagement strategies I think you should have as a bare minimum. Talked about candidate application as well, and also the welcome. Anybody who gets added to the database, that's a great way of sort of welcoming them into your business and engaging them that way. Here's an example of an automation we did for a specific client. So recruiters like going to LinkedIn, and they like going specifically to job boards because they think that by searching for the last time a candidate updated their CV indicates that they're more active. And they're not probably wrong there, but we don't have that ability within Bullhorn. Well, we do, we just need to configure it. So what we do for our clients is that we have an outreach campaign of candidates saying, please upload your CV. Anybody who engages and uploads their CVs, we track that and update a field in the database called last CV date. So that recruiters then can sort, pull up their search, they can sort immediately and then look for the most recent CVs that were updated. It has the same functionality, the same reason behind it as to what's going on in job boards. So that's a really great way of being able to get your recruiters to engage with the data within your database and give them the same functionality as what they expect from a job board. Oh, advertised jobs. Come on, Lisa.
Muted. I think it's obviously worth bearing in mind, I'm not anti-LinkedIn and I'm not anti-job boards, but I'm absolutely anti-wasting time and money, and especially with the way the market is right now. And I'm confident of what I've just said not being a dated statement, because I feel like I've been saying this for the last, well, certainly since 2008. That there's a lot of blindsiding going on in our industry and the sectors that we support. And so we need to be as lean as we possibly can. And our data is the only thing that stays with us, because our staff unfortunately move on. Our clients and candidates to a certain extent do move around a little bit, but the bit that we've got close, we've got to keep it tight. But I do think there's too much job advertising going on. I think it's easy to do. And I say it's easy to probably create some pretty pants job adverts as opposed to really craft very engaging ones. So I just want you to think about what actually happens when you advertise a job. We know that averages 250 candidates per job. I know it varies from sector to sector and from a perm contract, but it's an expensive thing to do, because as much as it feels like it's free, you know, we've never posted as many job adverts as we have right now. And that's because of all of these lovely systems out there that allow us to push them out to multiple places. And now social media as well, you know, although there's a limit to how effective that can be. But I just want you to think about the impact on your database, on the ROI that Bullhorn is able to deliver to you, if all you're doing is this vicious circle of hauling in more data that you've not got time to engage and source from.
I think one of the things that you can be asking, either overhearing if you're a leader or a manager of your team, even if just a recruiter here yourself, how many times do you hear, God, there's so much rubbish that I get from advertising? Well, why are we constantly doing the same thing? We're still getting loads of rubbish. It takes time to filter through that rubbish. That's the time element and the cost element. So engaging the candidates on your database and understanding what you've got on your database and making those data sets really valuable will speed up that process. I think that's the thing that I think most businesses understand. They don't actually implement it particularly well.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
For me, it's a psychological thing as well. I think, you know, it's like, because we can, it means we will. Well, I need you to think about, do you really need to advertise that job? Or if you just spent, even if you just said, Lisa, I'm going to make a commitment to you today, because I'm a smart plan girl, you see, you know, you're specific, measurable. But if you said, you know what, Lise, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out how many job adverts I'm posting right now, and I'm going to set a goal of doing less. And that's not a smart goal. 10 less next month, 20 less the month after, and just shaving, you know, these 1 degree differences or 1%, these Kaizen, if you've come across Kaizen as an implementation method. But I just want you to think about the impact of job adverts. And I also want you to think about, if we're still saying this to you in a year's time, what opportunities you may have missed out on. So let's go on to the next slide, because we've hammered that home, I think, Wayne. I feel like I'm telling everyone off today.
The advertised jobs within Bullhorn, advertised jobs, why would you want to do that? Well, it costs 6 times more to source a new candidate than re-engage an existing one. We've just explained that, the time element, the cost element, you know, the ability to download 250 CVs now from a job board costs you money to download those CVs now. It's not like the olden days where they just used to give them to you for free. But if 72% of the time those CVs are already in your database, that's a huge amount of wasted money. So why would you want to do that? Reduce your sourcing costs, monetize your candidates on your database. You know, lots of candidates are expecting that they've signed up for you. They want to hear about the jobs that you've got, but yet recruiters don't engage the candidates on the database. Therefore, that's one of the reasons why they say never hear back from recruiters. 60% of candidates say they have a poor experience of recruiters because they never get back to them. Advertised jobs will help fix some of those issues. I see a lot of this whereby only 3, 4, 5 candidates get shortlisted against the job. Well, they're not, it's probably not the true reflection of that. And shortlisting candidates against a job adds value, because next time you get a job in a similar role, in a similar location, you can immediately go back to that history, that looking at the shortlist and say, these were the people that almost got the job. They're the people I want to speak to immediately. Or those are the people that just never came back to me. They're the people that I might want to put on my call list, but they'll be right at the end of my call list. I'll try these people first. So you want to really track to see who's engaging with you. Doing all of that through Bullhorn adds huge amounts of value. Advertised jobs in Bullhorn and Bullhorn automation is super simple to get set up. It takes about an hour and a half to get set up properly. The idea behind it is that you shortlist the candidates against the job. That then triggers off an automation in the background, a campaign that reaches out to the candidates and go, got a job. Here's some information about it. You can merge the fields, you can merge the job titles, you merge the locations, merge the company if you want to do that. You can merge in as well the job advert itself. All the information is presented to the candidate in one email, buttons on the page that says, yes, I'm interested. No, I'm not. It's not relevant, maybe. And then you get immediate responses. The response rates to this advertised job process, we typically see 20%. 20% of the candidates are active on your database at any one time. 80% of them not active. So I wouldn't expect to see 80, 100% people respond. If you've got a really warm, active, good quality database, I would expect to see 30, 40% engagement rates. And that's a huge amount of engagement that you have on your database. Some of the considerations that people don't like doing this, they feel like sending the same email out with the same information. They want more personalization, and that there is a way around doing that. Again, you can reach out to me and talk to me about that. You may need to suppress candidates that you don't want to be contacting. If you have very key accounts, so Google's one of your best clients, you want to make sure you want to suppress anybody that you've recently placed or any of your key clients out of that process, so you don't reach out to them inadvertently. But yeah, the advertised job process, I love it. I think it adds huge value. And on top of that, it takes around about, if you've got favorite searches set up, here's a list of my data scientists in London. I get a set data scientist job. All I need to do is then pull up that list, shortlist them against the job, 300-400 people. I know full well that only 20% of those people are going to come back. Yeah, if you really want to, get the candidates to call you, or give them the option of the new calendar feature, which is book my diary. Give them that flexibility, so the recruiters can speak to these people really quickly, as opposed to send out an advert, wait for the responses, and then have to trawl through all the rubbish. That wastes a huge amount of time. I think if you haven't got advertised jobs set up on your automation, you're really missing a trick at engaging the database and speeding up your recruitment process. There we go, I've said my piece. What does it look like from behind the scenes? This is what it looks like. List, and then basically you send out emails or engagements or text messages, and you can do that as many times as you want. As you can see here, so some stats that I've pulled through. Open rates are slightly irrelevant, but 21% in this instance. So we sent out 7,000 contacts, 1,300, 1,500 have come back and said, yeah, they're interested. Yeah, in this instance. And you can see there, people say, well, what about the unsubscribe rates? I'm generally seeing less than 1% unsubscribe rates overall across all clients that I work with. So I don't think communicating to candidates with relevant opportunities is a bad thing. Yeah, I would rather over communicate to those people and tell them how many wonderful jobs we've got, rather than just not speak to them at all. Have I done enough there, Lisa? I think I've sold it enough.
I think we're going to have a come down moment at the end of this, aren't we? Like a bit of a chamomile tea or something.
Yeah.
In the blog that I'm sure you all have read already, because I published it last night and I know you were waiting. I talked about the vicious circle of recruitment where, we spend all day sourcing. If we get a minute, we chuck it on Bullhorn. I haven't got time to code it up because I spent too long sourcing, and now I need to just get with placing, and I do all of that. And maybe I'm not cleaning as I go. I'm not, taking my place candidates and doing something with them. I'm not taking my silver medal candidates and doing something with them. And then when I come to search Bullhorn, oh, what a mess! I better go and advertise and source again. And it's that vicious cycle, isn't it? And LinkedIn love it, and job boards really love it, and Indeed, etc. And we've seen some real creased foreheads of our clients in recent years, where the goal is to reduce reliance. But I'm a big fan of turning that vicious cycle into a virtuous circle. And that's what that blog I've given you talks about. And this is what we're talking about today. And the next webinar is going to be chock full of that. I want you to be thinking about that you've got to create a culture in your business where it's okay to keep in touch with candidates. And it's, you know, do not ever accept that automation roboticizes recruitment. It will if you let it, but I'm a big fan of it actually rehumanizes recruitment, because it creates space for recruitment consultants to do their job, and to stop being recruitment administrators who are potentially roboticizing the process. So I really want you to lean into that concept, and again, shave away those reasons why you are not speaking to your candidates on a regular basis, and make them so much more eminently sourceable, which is the purpose of today's webinar, by creating that virtuous circle. Because if the database can feed itself and you can feed off it, then rock and roll. That's a good place to be, isn't it, Wayne?
It is. It is.
Brilliant.
Talking about roboticizing the recruitment process, let's talk about Automatch, shall we? Automatch can be a fantastic tool. I think it's where recruitment is heading, if I'm allowed to say that, whereby AI and the process of matching candidates against jobs, AI is going to speed that process up a lot. There's already lots of systems out there, lots of AI tools that you can go and purchase that will try and do some of that automated matching process for you. Automatch is one of those tools that's already built into automation. If you've got it, it's an enterprise feature. You might need to upgrade if you need to upgrade it. But the idea behind this is that there's a bit of a semantic matching matrix, let's call it, that will try and identify the relevant candidates for a specific or for roles. And what I tend to see here is that everyone goes, well, there's all my live jobs and there's all my live candidates, and therefore try and match them against that. And it doesn't quite work sometimes. So what we tend to do here is we say, well, let's look at Java development jobs, and here's a match of your Java development candidates. And therefore you're only matching the candidates against the specific job roles. Now, this goes back to having good quality data to begin with. So everything we've talked about previously, focus on that potentially before you get to Automatch. But the great thing about this is that if you've got Java development jobs and Java development candidates, and you had a Java development job, try saying that 15 times, then the Automatch system should say, well, there's a list of people, and that's the region or the location that they're prepared to work. And it can shortlist those candidates against the job. It can do the outreach through advertised jobs and say, got an interesting job, Mr. Java developer. Are you interested in this role? Candidate comes back and says, yes, they are. So it's automating that entire outreach program. And it's removing, to a certain degree, some of the bias. It's removing some of it's removing the recruiters, how would I describe this? Forgetfulness of the candidates that may be in the database. So you are reaching out to everyone potentially that could do that role, as long as the data is correct. Now, it didn't work, or only worked in the UK, US, Australia, and New Zealand. But as of last month, the wonderful Mandy, the product manager of automation, and he got this little option filter on distance switched on. What does that do? Well, that will enable you to say Java development jobs in Yorkshire or remote. And there's a list of my candidates that are Java development jobs, candidates that live in Yorkshire or are prepared to work remotely. So you can now, for European countries and the rest of the world countries, you can now use your Automatch to be able to define what your list is with your location data, and also your candidate with location data. So you can use Automatch, whereas previously it wasn't really usable. It wasn't usable at all outside of those 4 key regions. So what one says, it's now there. You can now use it across the rest of the world. I think it adds value. I do think it adds more value the more jobs you've got, the more recruiters, and the bigger the database you are. I think there's a huge amount of evolution that's going to come around this particular process over the next 12, 24 months. Here's an example of what it looks like. No, it's not. It's the wrong one. Apologies. There we go. This is the Ultimate Java Development Jobs, as you can see. So you basically say, there's my Java Development Jobs. And then you say match, and you can match up to 250 candidates now. Was limited to 50 previously, it's now been increased. And you just fill this form in. It will then go through, and every job that gets added based around your job list criteria, will then automatically go away and match those candidates. It's great if you've got new recruits, you've got young, inexperienced recruiters that have joined the business. Yeah, switch this on for them, allow them to sift through that shortlist and reach out to those candidates and go through that process. Yeah, if you've got advertised jobs switched on as well, I would just automatically allow them to reach out and just get the candidates that come back and say yes, they're interested. That's the key bit, I think. Anything else that you want to cover off on that, Lisa? I think
no,
covered
let's move
enough
on.
off
I'm
on
aware
that.
of time. Let's go.
Okay.
We've got a really cute tip. We've got a really cute tip here, Wayne. Talk us through what this Bullhorn tip is, because we always like to give something away that you can take back to your team if they're not using it right now from a pure Bullhorn usage perspective.
I talked about hot lists. Hot lists are great for temporarily storing bits of information that you want to work through. What I see hot lists used for most is, here's a list of all my favorite Java candidates or all my Java candidates. Hot lists take managing. You need to add people and remove people from that hot list. When you've got 300, 400, 500, 600 hot lists in your business, invariably they go stale, they go out of date, people don't trust the data. So this is where favorite searches should be used over and above hot lists. Favorite searches are just a search. Yeah, I build out my search criteria, Java developers, that live in London. Yeah, I can then run that search and it produces a list of people. I then can go and use that and save that as a favorite search. That means when I want to access that data next time round, I just go to favorites, I click on the button that says Java Developers London, and it reruns the search in the background. So it's automatically adding or removing people from that list, which is what Hotlist doesn't do. Yeah, it's a really quick way of engaging your recruiters and enabling them to source candidates very, very quickly and keep that data up to date. We've just done this with the European recruiter. They need languages. So we've just said, here's a list of all the German speakers, all the Polish speakers, all the Italian speakers. So when they need to find a Polish speaker who wants to work in Lisbon, they now just literally they run that search, it pulls up all the Polish people, they immediately filter on desired locations, and there is their list of people they need to call. It takes seconds to do that rather than run to a hot list. The thing about hot lists is you can't filter like you can within favorite searches as well. So therefore they have to extract that data, they've got to run through it. It's a real pain in the ass for them to do that. So favorite searches, I think, is definitely a way forward. If you're not using them and you're using a lot of hot lists, consider switching that, consider training your recruiters out to use that differently. So automation next steps, giving you a lot of information there around what you can do within Bullhorn and also automation to help speed up your sourcing process. If it was me working with you now, I'd want to identify what the barriers to you using Bullhorn data is. If you can identify and get the reasons behind it, then you've got an action plan. You can start mitigating those barriers. I would always suggest that you need to start cleansing your data, and you've got various different means of doing that. Reminding your recruiters, getting the candidates to do it for you, layering the information over a longer period of time. You need to engage your candidates and keep your candidate data engaged. The more you engage your candidates, the more likely you are to have a positive response when you reach out to them in the first place. Use advertised jobs. I've said it. Use Automatch if you've got it. And you need to be making sure that you are speaking to your recruiters and getting their feedback and understanding what's working and what's not working. If you need some help in this area, we obviously have our buddy coaching and buddy building programs, so feel free to reach out to us. Lisa's more than happy to speak to you about that.
Absolutely. I'll be nagging you about it anyway and being a good girl and letting you know about our next set of webinars. So just while we're chatting, there were 4 things that we were talking about here, and just while we finish off, just chuck the numbers. Number 1 was basically removing the barriers. Yeah. Number 4 was Automatch. Number 3 was job advertising, and number 2 was engagement. Which of those 4 things are you going to go and tackle? It might be 1, 2, 3, and 4, but just put some numbers in your chat. We'd love some feedback. Let's move on, Wayne, because I'm aware of time.
Okay.
Lovely. So our next Bullhorn webinar, remember we run 2 webinars a month at the moment, soon to be 3, because we are about to start doing a load of work on analytics, which more data to play with. But our next Bullhorn Tips webinar, we ran one yesterday specifically on how recruiters can use Bullhorn to engage their candidates. Next month, it's going to be flipping it over and going, right, okay, sourcing is still important. I must stress this, not trying to kill off sources in the business, but what are our proper hacks for using Bullhorn to do that? Okay, so that's something for you to book yourselves onto, and I'll be sending you a link to that anyway. I'm going to also ask you via a separate email, which other webinars would you really value? If you could have literally your own private dance with Wayne and I and the team, what webinars would you want to be sending yourself on and your team on? So look out for that email coming from me very soon as well. Keep us in mind for all the things that we do, because as much as sometimes we do a lot of work with clients from an automation perspective, we also have our online training platform as well called Recruitment Hit. Wayne, get yourself into those slides, please, sir.
Yeah.
So we've got Recruitment Hit, which will help you and your recruiters engage better with all of your tech, not just Bullhorn, and also the process. We do a load of recruitment training, MS Teams, LinkedIn, Bullhorn, analytics, automation. We've got a platform that does all of that and helps you onboard new starters quicker than ever before and get your experienced recruiters cooking with gas as well. And we can give free trials for that. Next slide, Wayne.
Yep.
So we give free trials for that. So if you want a free trial of Hit, just drop me a line. I'll be nagging you as well. So let's not worry about that. I also mentioned earlier on in this call as well, we have a really cool service called Bullhorn Vision. And what the Bullhorn Vision product is, and this particular gent is a big fan of ours, which I'm very glad about, is it allows us to really get inside your business, inside your system, inside your process, your data and your people's heads, and really understand how you are using those platforms and what you can do differently to make them run faster. And I'm talking about your data, your people and your processes and your systems run faster. So that's something else for you to consider as well if you want to end the year stronger than when you started it. And obviously Wayne and our team are a really cool bunch of automation buddies. So we do more coaching, more advanced strategic ideas, as well as, Lisa, I haven't got time to build anything. Can you just give me some ideas of what I could do? And then can you go and do them for us? The answer is a big fat, of course we can. So let's not have that car sat on the drive, not being driven. Get in the back and get on with your day, and we'll get on with it for you instead. Keep us posted. I'll be sending you a little email with a recording link and some questions that I'd love you to answer on how we're getting on these webinars. Have a great rest of week and let us know how you get on. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, guys.